Let us talk now with Harry Khachatrian up in Toronto. And it's a good thing that I get Harry's tweets, which you can find yourself at Harry1T6, because I was under the impression that the attack in Manchester yesterday was by Amish Scientologist Buddhists. But Harry tweeted this morning and cleared up that it was not. And Harry, I just want to thank you for that important piece of information. Your Twitter feed has been very helpful, but that was, it totally shattered my illusions there.
I do what I can.
So what do you make of the latest thing? I feel like there's nothing new to say here at all. It's same old, same old. What am I missing?
Yeah, for the same part, it is the same old. I think one thing that particularly stands out was the venues in this instance. One thing that really hit me was the fact that the performer Ariana, she's literally the same age I am, so that was kind of really just hits you in the face to think what she must be going through just after her concert was wrapped up. In addition to the fact that the average attendee of her concert is somewhere between the ages of 8 and 15. Most likely they're alone or with their mom.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's one side of it. That's
by the way, isn't she the one who had the song? I don't know her music very well. "Love Me Harder." Right. I mean, why are young girls going to? I know a little bit about her. Huh? What does that say about our society?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fair point to make on its own. I think pop music has been highly sexualized. There's no question there. That aside, I think like Ariana herself was sort of one of the celebrities who sort of joined in this chorus of condemning Republicans and Trump. Now I don't know what her personal political opinions are. Like I don't know. Maybe she did this to be cool and fit in with all her left-wing hip celebrity friends. But I think with one of my tweets, I pointed out just after the election, she called the winning of Donald Trump terrifying. So, I really hope that it's, that it would sink in, and she would understand just how silly that is specifically. I think there was another controversy with her a year ago.
You asked on a tweet, is it too soon to point out that she called Trump winning the presidency terrifying? And I was going to tell you, not here, it's not. You could have done that last night if I had a show last night late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't want to be mistaken, but I think there was another controversy she was embroiled in a year or so ago where she said she hated Americans. She was embarrassed to be American. So, again, like I don't want to...
that was when she was licking the donuts at the bakery because,
Sir,
and she was driving the people working there, the hard-working people who worked there crazy. Class act, very classy.
Indeed. So, it's not my intention to sort of call her out to attack her, and, especially in light of what she's going through. But, either she was sort of doing it to fit in with her liberal friends, either if it was that or she genuinely believed it. I do hope that she reevaluates those opinions in light of what's happened.
Yeah, look, she's just probably a bubblehead musician, doesn't have strong opinions, probably trying to fit in.
23 years old in the music industry.
It's not her fault. She doesn't have any sense of responsibility for what happened. I don't know why she should even feel guilty. But, of course, if I say that, I could say the same thing about Black Lives Matter in Dallas last July, which I actually believe. You can't really blame that on Black Lives Matter, because one person does that. And you also had the point that, and I want to talk about this a little bit with you, that post-terrorist attack Twitter is always the worst Twitter. And you've been mining Twitter, it seems, for really stupid stuff liberals have been saying, which gives them a break from saying it about Trump. What have you noticed in this instance? It didn't take long, from what I could see, until they started complaining and having warnings against Islamophobia.
Yeah, there were two things that stood out there. So one of them, I think you even posted this on Facebook, was this individual from CBS News. So he's a freelance writer who does some work with CBS, I suppose.
Right.
David something. And this man effectively destroyed his entire career, and then he followed up by doubling down on it. So it
was weird because he was pretty marginal to begin with. He was only a freelancer that not too many people know. And he looked kind of weird in his picture, all things considered. Yeah, I don't think there's much upside to hiring him, just standing by him in the future. He's replaceable.
It's never, I guess, nice to see people destroying their career, but it does go to show that the internet is forever, and you should be careful not to make stupid remarks. So that aside, I think on the point that you made earlier, it's I mean we're seeing the same reaction as after every terrorist incident, which is just completely absurd, kind of recycling talking points from the left, where they go on about how the only real solution to this atrocity is to pretend that it didn't happen and just kind of go on with your life.
It's a sick society.
Yeah, I mean it's like why don't you just go the other way? Instead of just doing nothing, why don't you remove security altogether? Why don't you just let anyone walk into a concert, let anyone walk into your country now? I mean, really, the only way to actually do something about this is to sort of look at what Israel did. Right? Israel was facing terrorist threats like this every single day, and the reason this doesn't happen now in Israel is because they actually cracked down on it. They actually they had a serious conversation about what sort of, I guess, as people like to label civil liberties, have to be reevaluated in favor of not getting blown up in the streets. Yeah, but
that's just because Zionists are racists. We know that from the UN.
Right, of course. As the Saudi Arabia Human Rights Commission on the UN likes to say, it's just because they're all racist. But so yeah, I mean, just as a quick point, I mean, I've lived in Israel, and it's sort of a regular way of life there, where if you get on a bus, you get into a mall, someone checks what's in your bag, and the reason this had to happen there was that the country was effectively established a zone where everyone around them wanted to wipe them out. Mm-hmm. This wasn't the case in Europe before, but it is effectively now because of these reckless refugee policies. They've brought in people like I think the guy in Manchester was
Libyan descent. His parents were from Libya or something.
Libya, yeah, okay. I haven't seen. Yeah, I think you're right. Libya. I mean, the point is that why was he in Germany in the first place? Or sorry, why was he in Manchester, UK in the first place?
And because it would be racist not to let him in. I don't know. It's so insane to me. I mean, what are they thinking? What are they possibly going to gain? This is not even some sort of post-war shortage. You might have justified it in the 50s, but my God, what's wrong with these people? I liked your response, by the way, to a woman who had put that she would be in #Manchester at the Central Mosque to be alongside our #Muslim brothers and sisters at prayer today. That's sort of from the #HugAMuslim line of thinking.
Yeah.
You need me to remind me what you wrote, or you got it? You can take it from there.
No, I recall. Now, I mean, my initial reaction there is I think it's an exercise of virtue signaling, which virtually everyone likes to do from the left. Is they sort of they immediately their response, apart from saying now we have to pretend like the terrorist didn't happen. What we also have to do is to sort of look at the real victims, and the real victims are sort of the backlash facing Muslims, right? Which I mean, any level-headed person clearly understands, of course, the fact that the attacker didn't represent the entire faith. Mm-hmm. This doesn't need repeating. But at the same time, I think the way on the left sort of endlessly virtue signal instead of actually addressing the problem, I think that is, it's not productive in any way. It doesn't actually solve anything. Yeah,
it's a sign of the times. I don't know if it's the total psychosis that's going on in Europe and so many places, but when the Holocaust was going on in Europe, when the Armenian genocide was going on, your people there in Asia Minor, the Ottoman Empire, you didn't virtue signal and try to justify it online. You just sort of hoped it wouldn't affect you, and you kept your mouth shut and pretended like you didn't notice. But this is a whole new thing entirely in the last 20 years. You just kind of shut up about it back then, and I don't know. It's just bizarre. And you wrote something about how it's a predictable insert country here must respond to the latest Islamic terror attack by pretending it never happened and then taking incoming. And that to me is like, they won't beat us. They're the ones who are losing by them doing this. It just makes no sense to me, Harry, that they do that. It's just bizarre. No, actually they are affecting your way of life. I think you made that point somewhere, didn't you?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think
you wrote it. Of course you do. I think I got that from you.
Yeah, and it's I think I mostly say it's from the left, but George W. Bush, he spoke along the same lines after the World Trade Center attacks, where he said, well, we should just go back to live the way we were and pretend it didn't happen. Otherwise, the terrorists will win. Along those lines, which really every time I hear it, I think is quite irritating because I think that if you can identify there is a serious threat, it is the stupidest thing you can do to pretend that there isn't a threat. People they like to argue that we're not going to give up our civil liberties, but
and in fairness to President Bush too, that was the first time this really happened. Not the first time, but the first really major time this has happened on American soil. The first World Trade Center bombing aside. So he had a legitimate point, but this is now happening it's the new normal in so many European major cities.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think nothing will change unless we see real security reforms, like actual, like an increase of checking bags, of cameras, and so on. And I'm sure if you poll people and if you actually ask reasonable people on the street if they would mind, an extra bag check before they get on the subway versus a high likelihood of a situation like this, I think most people would be totally fine with having someone stare in their bag for a second.
Of course, the Muslim terrorists will adjust to this. This was apparently outside the actual concert. It was in the lobby where people were walking out. So there's no reason they couldn't do this outside when people are waiting for cabs. So, it's one step, but I think one great step would be like borders, One more thing I want to just see that got my attention. This was something you retweeted from someone called Hamish Conservative. From Naftali Bennett. Well, I'll let you tell us about it if you remember which one it was.
Right. So I think this was in response to a Benjamin Netanyahu tweet, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
This is a point that a lot of people just don't know. Is if this was a Palestinian terrorist and he was targeting the Jews, the Israeli Jews, then the actual government, Mahmoud Abbas, would pay this person's family a monthly salary for life.
Mm-hmm.
This is the evil that Israel lives with basically every day. People who are incentivized in this way, that their family will receive a pension for life if they blow themselves up and kill a bunch of Israelis. And yet people still have the temerity to draw a moral equivalence between those two sides.
Yeah, great point to make, especially with President Trump in Israel. Well, you make show prep easy because you have such a worthwhile Twitter feed, which people can find at Harry1T6. Thanks for coming on. Any final points before I let you go?
I suppose Donald Trump's next stop will be the Vatican, and I think one of my tweets alluded to that as well. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the talks to Donald Trump again if he ventures off into political commentary with U.S. immigration policy in general. I think that'll be very interesting to watch now. All right. Well, thank you for your analysis today, Harry. Always happy to come on. And good luck, Senators, today. It's been too long since a Canadian hockey team. I know their backs up against the wall. I will be watching. Yep.